Welcome to Unbound Stories SR, where we uncover the darkest secrets hidden behind perfect smiles. I'm your host, and today I'm bringing you a case that will make you question everything you think you know about trust, friendship, and betrayal. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because this story has 8 parts, and you won't want to miss a single twist. Picture this, a warm summer evening in suburban Connecticut. Kids playing in the streets, barbecues smoking, the American dream alive and well. But in one pristine white house on Maple Street, something was about to shatter that dream forever. Michael Harrison, 42 years old, successful investment banker, father of 2, beloved husband. By all accounts, he had it all. The corner office, the beautiful wife, the respect of everyone who knew him. But on the night of August 15th, 2019, Michael Harrison would make a phone call that would change everything. Not to 911, not to his lawyer, but to his best friend, David Chen. And what David heard on that call would lead to one of the most twisted cases of betrayal this country has ever seen. If you're ready for a story that'll keep you on the edge of your seat, smash that like button right now. Trust me, you'll want to remember where you heard this first. Let me take you back 5 years before that fateful night. Michael Harrison wasn't always living in that perfect house in Connecticut. No, his story starts in a small apartment in Brooklyn, New York. 2014. He was 37, divorced, struggling to make ends meet after a nasty separation that had drained his savings. His ex-wife Jennifer had taken almost everything in the divorce: the house, the car, most of their shared assets. Michael was left with nothing but his determination and a small apartment that smelled like old carpets and broken dreams. But Michael was a fighter. He'd wake up at 5 a.m. every morning, hit the gym, shower, put on his best suit, one of only 2 he owned, and walk into that investment firm like he owned the place. His colleagues remembered him as driven, hungry, almost desperate to prove himself. Michael had this intensity, his former coworker, Patricia Gomes, would later tell investigators. Like he was running from something, or towards something. We could never quite figure out which. It was during this time that Michael met 2 people who would become central to his story. First, David Chen. David was everything Michael wasn't. Born into money, Ivy League educated, comfortable in his own skin. He worked in the same investment firm, 2 floors above Michael. They met in the elevator one morning, a chance encounter that would bind their fates together. "You look like you could use a coffee," David had said, noticing Michael's exhausted eyes. That coffee turned into lunch. Lunch turned into drinks after work. Within months, they were inseparable. David saw something in Michael, a raw ambition that reminded him of his own father. And Michael saw in David something he'd never had, a true friend who believed in him. David started mentoring Michael, teaching him the insider tricks of the trade, introducing him to the right people, opening doors that had been locked for Michael his entire life. "David gave me a second chance," Michael would later say in a deposition. "He saw potential in me when I couldn't even see it in myself." Now, before I tell you about the second person Michael met, the one who would ultimately lead to his downfall, take a second and drop a comment below. Tell me, do you believe people can truly change? Or are we all just playing roles until our true nature reveals itself? I'm curious what you think. The second person who entered Michael's life in 2014 was Sarah Mitchell. 29 years old, blonde hair, blue eyes, the kind of smile that could light up a room. She worked as a marketing consultant for tech startups, smart, ambitious, and according to everyone who knew her, absolutely magnetic. Michael met Sarah at a networking event David had invited him to. One of those fancy rooftop parties in Manhattan where everyone pretends to care about synergy and disruptive innovations while really just trying to make connections. Michael was nursing a beer in the corner, feeling out of place among all the wealthy millennials when Sarah approached him. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else," she said with a laugh. Michael smiled, that obvious, only to someone who feels the same way. They talked for 3 hours that night, about their dreams, their failures, their fears. Sarah told Michael about her own struggles growing up in a trailer park in Ohio, working 3 jobs to put herself through community college, clawing her way into the marketing world against all odds. "We were both survivors," Michael would later reflect. "At least that's what I thought we were." Their connection was instant. Within weeks, they were dating. Within 6 months, they were living together in a slightly better apartment in Queens. Within a year, they were engaged. David was thrilled. He threw them an engagement party at his family's estate in the Hamptons. Champagne flowed. People danced. Under the stars that night, with Sarah in his arms and David by his side, Michael Harrison believed he had finally made it. He had survived the divorce, survived the poverty, survived the doubt. He was going to build something beautiful. Little did he know, he was building a house of cards, and the wind was already starting to blow. Between 2015 and 2017, Michael's life transformed completely. With David's mentorship and connections, Michael's career exploded. He landed bigger clients, closed bigger deals. His commission checks went from 4 figures to 5 figures to 6 figures. In 2016, he married Sarah in a beautiful ceremony at a vineyard in Napa Valley. David was his best man. Sarah's maid of honor was her sister, Jessica, who had flown in from Ohio. "I've never seen my sister happier," Jessica said in her toast that night. "Michael, you're the man she always dreamed of. Thank you for making those dreams come true." The happy couple bought that white house on Maple Street in Connecticut. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a backyard with a pool. The kind of house Michael used to drive past as a kid, wondering what it would be like to live in a place like that. Now he knew. In 2017, their daughter Emma was born. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, with Sarah's blue eyes and Michael's determined chin. Michael cried when he held her for the first time. "I'm going to give you everything I never had," he whispered to her in the hospital room. "I promise." A year later, their son Jake arrived. The family was complete. From the outside, everything looked perfect. Michael had the job, the house, the wife, the kids, the best friend who had made it all possible. But here's what nobody knew. Cracks were already forming in the foundation. It started small, little things that Michael tried to ignore. In early 2018, he noticed Sarah was spending more time on her phone, texting during dinner, stepping out of the room to take calls, laughing at messages she wouldn't share with him. "Who are you texting?" Michael would ask. "Just work stuff," Sarah would reply, slipping her phone into her pocket. "Client drama, you know how it is." Michael did know how it was. He worked long hours too, so he didn't push. Then there were the late nights at the office. Sarah's marketing consulting business was growing, she said. Big clients, important meetings. Sometimes she wouldn't get home until 10 or 11 p.m. "I'm building something," she told Michael when he expressed concern. "Just like you built your career. You understand, don't you?" He did understand, or at least he told himself he did. But then came the credit card statements. In June 2018, Michael noticed charges he didn't recognize. Expensive dinners at restaurants they'd never been to together. Hotel rooms in Manhattan when Sarah claimed she was working from home. Purchases from Victoria's Secret and high-end boutiques. When he asked Sarah about them, she had an explanation for everything. "Client dinners, I expense them back." The hotel was for an overnight strategy session with the team. "The clothes, I need to look professional, Michael. Image matters in my business." Every explanation made sense, but together they formed a pattern that made Michael's stomach turn. He wanted to trust her. God, he wanted to trust her so badly. So he did what many people do when faced with uncomfortable truths. He ignored them. He threw himself deeper into work, spent more time at the office, told himself that successful marriages required trust, and trust meant not asking too many questions. But late at night, lying in bed next to Sarah while she slept, Michael would stare at the ceiling and wonder, was he being paranoid, or was he being blind? This is where the story takes a dark turn, folks, and I mean dark. If you're still watching, drop a eth yen in the comments. Let me know you're hooked. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? This story gets crazier with every part. During this time, there was one constant in Michael's life: David Chen. David had been promoted to vice president at the firm. He was making serious money now, but he never forgot his friend. They still had their weekly lunches, still played basketball on Saturday mornings, still grabbed beers after work. David was my rock, Michael said. When I started doubting myself, doubting my marriage, doubting everything, David was there. He'd listen. He'd give advice. He'd tell me I was overthinking things. And David loved Sarah. At least that's what Michael thought. David and his wife, Jennifer, yes, confusingly the same name as Michael's ex-wife, would come over for dinner parties. The four of them would laugh, drink wine, talk about their dreams and plans. "You two are couple goals," Jennifer Chen would say to Michael and Sarah. "Seriously, you make marriage look easy." Sarah would squeeze Michael's hand and smile. "We're just lucky," she'd say. But Michael was starting to feel less lucky and more anxious with each passing day. In August 2018, things came to a head. Michael came home early from work one afternoon. A client meeting had been canceled, and found Sarah in the living room on the phone. She didn't hear him come in. "I know, baby, I know," Sarah was saying, her voice soft and intimate in a way Michael hadn't heard in months. "I miss you too. Tonight's not good, but maybe Thursday. Yes, I'll figure something out. I always do. I love you too." Michael's heart stopped. Sarah turned and saw him standing there. For just a second, maybe less than a second, her face showed pure panic. Then she recovered. "Hey, honey," she said brightly, ending the call. "You're home early." "Who was that?" Michael asked, his voice barely a whisper. Oh, that was Jessica, my sister. She's going through a rough patch with her boyfriend. I was just being supportive." "You told her you love her." "Well, yeah, she's my sister, Michael. What, I'm not allowed to love my sister?" The explanation was plausible. Jessica was going through relationship problems. Sarah had mentioned that before. It made sense. But the tone of that conversation, the way Sarah had said baby, the panic in her eyes. Michael wanted to press further, but he was afraid of what he might discover. So once again, he let it go. He shouldn't have. Which brings us to August 15th, 2019. The night everything changed. Michael had been feeling increasingly desperate. The signs were too many to ignore now. The late nights, the mysterious texts, the emotional distance. Sarah barely touched him anymore. She'd moved into the guest room, claiming his snoring was keeping her awake. "We have 2 small kids," she'd said. "I need my sleep, Michael. Don't make this into something it's not." But it was something. Michael knew it. He just didn't want to face it. On August 15th, Sarah told Michael she had an overnight client meeting in Boston. She'd be back the next day. "Boston?" Michael asked. "You didn't mention a Boston client." "New account," Sarah said, throwing clothes into an overnight bag. "Last-minute thing, big opportunity, you understand, right?" Michael said he understood. But after Sarah left, after he put Emma and Jake to bed, after the house fell silent, Michael sat in his kitchen and stared at the phone in his hand. He thought about his marriage, his children, his life. And he thought about David's advice from their last lunch together. "Michael, if you really think something's wrong, you need to know for sure. Not knowing is worse than the truth. Trust me on this." So Michael opened his laptop, and did something he'd been avoiding for months. He logged into their phone carrier's website and pulled up Sarah's phone records. What he saw made his blood run cold. Hundreds of texts to one number, calls lasting hours, multiple calls per day every day for the past year. A number he didn't recognize. With shaking hands, Michael picked up his phone and called the one person he trusted more than anyone in the world. David Chen. "Hey brother," David answered, sounding relaxed. "What's up?" "David, I need your help," Michael said, his voice breaking. "I think Sarah is having an affair." There was a pause on the other end of the line, a long pause. "Too long." "Michael," David finally said, and something in his voice made Michael's entire world start to crumble. "We need to talk." "About what?" Another pause. "About Sarah, about everything. Can you come over? Jennifer's out with friends. We should talk in person." Michael's hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the phone. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up, called the babysitter to come watch the kids, and drove to David's house with a sense of dread settling over him like a heavy blanket. He had no idea that in 20 minutes, his entire understanding of his life was about to explode. He had no idea that the betrayal was so much worse than he imagined. And he had no idea that by the end of that night, he would be the one making a decision that would land him in court, fighting for his freedom. So what happened when Michael arrived at David's house that night? What did David tell him? And more importantly, what did Michael do with that information? This is where things get really twisted, folks. The phone call that revealed everything. The confrontation that turned violent. And the secret that David had been hiding for over a year. If you want to know what happened next, you need to keep watching. Don't you dare click away now. And please subscribe to Unbound Stories SR. Hit that notification bell. This story has 8 parts and every single one is going to blow your mind. Share this video with someone who loves true crime. Drop a comment telling me your theories about what's really going on here. Because trust me, you have no idea where this is going. Let's continue. Michael Harrison pulled into David Chen's driveway at exactly 9:47 p.m. on August 15, 2019. He would remember that time for the rest of his life. Because in the next hour, everything he thought he knew about his marriage, his friendship, and his entire existence would be shattered into a million pieces. Keep watching. What you're about to hear will shock you. Let me paint you a picture of Michael's mental state during that 20-minute drive. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. His mind was racing through every possibility, every explanation, every scenario. Maybe Sarah was having an affair with a coworker. Maybe it was someone from her past. Maybe it was someone he'd never even met. He thought about confronting her, demanding answers, filing for divorce. But then he thought about Emma and Jake, sleeping peacefully in their beds, unaware that their world was about to fall apart. "I can fix this," Michael kept telling himself. "Whatever it is, I can fix it. I always fix things." That's who Michael Harrison was, the fixer, the problem solver, the guy who turned a broken life into a successful one through sheer willpower and determination. But some things, as Michael was about to learn, can't be fixed. Some betrayals cut too deep. As he pulled up to David's colonial-style home, a beautiful property with a circular driveway and perfectly manicured lawn, Michael took a deep breath. David's wife Jennifer was supposedly out with friends. It was just going to be the two of them. Man to man, best friends, brothers really. Michael had no idea he was walking into an ambush. He walked up to the front door and knocked. David answered within seconds, as if he'd been waiting right there. "Come in," David said quietly. His face was pale. His usual confident demeanor was gone, replaced by something Michael had never seen before. Fear. "What's going on?" Michael asked, stepping inside. "You're scaring me, man." David closed the door and locked it. Then he turned to Michael with eyes full of something that looked like guilt. "Sit down," David said. "I don't want to sit down. I want to know what's happening. You said we need to talk about Sarah, about everything. What does that mean?" David walked to the bar in his living room and poured 2 whiskeys, large ones. He handed one to Michael. "Trust me," David said, "you're going to need this. If your heart is pounding right now, mine was too when I first heard this story. Hit that like button if you're as invested as I am. And comment below, do you think David knows who Sarah's having an affair with?" Michael drank the whiskey in one gulp. The burn felt good, real, something to focus on besides the dread crawling up his spine. "Talk to me," Michael said. "Please, David, just tell me what you know." David sat down heavily on his leather couch. He looked at the whiskey in his glass, then at Michael, then back at the glass. "How long have we been friends?" David asked quietly. 5 years, you know that." 5 years, David repeated. "Best friends, you trusted me. You let me into your life, into your family. I was at your wedding. I held your kids when they were born. He trailed off, his voice breaking. "David, you're freaking me out. What is going on?" David looked up at Michael with tears in his eyes. Actual tears. Michael had never seen David Chen cry, not once in 5 years. "I know who Sarah's having an affair with," David said. Michael's heart stopped. "Who?" "Michael, I'm so sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry. I never meant for this to happen. It spiraled out of control and I didn't know how to stop it and euros." "WHO," Michael shouted, standing up. "Just tell me who." David stood up too, his hands shaking. "Me," he whispered. "It's me. Sarah's been having an affair with me." The room spun. Michael literally felt the world tilt on its axis. He grabbed the back of the couch to steady himself. "What?" The word came out as barely a whisper. "Sarah and we've been seeing each other for 14 months. I'm so sorry, Michael. I'm so a euros." Michael's fist connected with David's jaw before he even realized he was swinging. David stumbled backward, knocking over a lamp. Blood trickled from his lip. "You," Michael screamed. "Am I best friend? Am I fucking best friend?" "Michael, please a euros." "How long?" You said 14 months. 14 months. David nodded, wiping blood from his mouth. "It started in June of last year, at your daughter's birthday party. We were both a little drunk. We started talking in the kitchen and it just happened." Michael felt like he was going to vomit. Emma's 2nd birthday party. He remembered that day. It was beautiful. Everyone was happy. Sarah had made this elaborate princess cake. David had brought Emma a giant stuffed unicorn. And while Michael was outside playing with the kids, his wife and his best friend were. "I need to leave," Michael said, turning toward the door. "Wait," David grabbed his arm. "There's more. You need to know everything." Michael spun around. "More? What the fuck else could there possibly be?" David's face crumpled. "Jake." "What about Jake?" "Michael, Jake might not be your son." Time stopped. The words hung in the air like poison gas, suffocating everything. "What did you just say?" Michael's voice was deadly quiet now. "Jake was born in September 2018, 9 months after Sarah and I started. We didn't use protection a few times. Sarah told me she was on birth control, but..." Michael's mind was racing. Jake, his son, his baby boy with the chubby cheeks and the bright laugh, the kid who called him Dada and wanted to be picked up all the time. "You're lying," Michael said. "You're fucking lying." "I'm not. Sarah told me 3 months ago. She had a DNA test done, privately. Jake is mine." "Prove it," Michael shouted. "Show me the fucking test." "I can't. Sarah has it. She told me in person. She said she didn't want me to have any documentation. She was scared you'd find it." Michael lunged at David again, but this time David was ready. He blocked the punch and grabbed both of Michael's arms. "Michael, stop, stop. I know you're angry. I know you want to kill me. I deserve it. But you need to hear everything before you do something you can't take back." "Get your hands off me," Michael growled. David let go and stepped back, hands raised. "There's more?" Michael asked incredulously. "How could there possibly be more?" "Jennifer knows," David said quietly. Michael blinked. "Your wife knows. She found out 6 months ago, found texts on my phone. We almost got divorced, but then..." "Then what?" "Then she decided to use it against me instead." Michael sat down, not because he wanted to, but because his legs wouldn't hold him anymore. "Explain," he said flatly. David poured himself another whiskey. His hand was shaking so badly, he almost missed the glass. "Jennifer found out about me and Sarah in February. She was furious, heartbroken. She wanted to tell you immediately, but I begged her not to." "Why?" "Because," David paused, choosing his words carefully, "because Jennifer and I have our own problems. She's been having an affair too, with my business partner Robert, for over a year." Michael let out a bitter laugh. "Jesus Christ, everyone's fucking everyone. I found out about Jennifer and Robert around the same time she found out about me and Sarah. We were both cheating, both caught, both with evidence that could destroy each other. So what did you do?" "We made a deal, a sick, twisted deal. We'd stay married, keep up appearances. Neither of us would tell the other's partner, and we'd both quietly continue our affairs while living in the same house like roommates." "That's insane." "I know, but what were we supposed to do? Divorce would have been expensive, messy. Our families would have been destroyed, our reputations ruined, so we chose this instead." Michael stared at David like he was seeing a stranger. "Who are you?" Michael asked. "I thought I knew you. I thought we were brothers." We are. Michael, I know you can't understand this, but I never wanted to hurt you. Sarah and I, it just happened. We tried to stop, multiple times, €. But what? You loved her too much. Is that what you're going to tell me?" David looked down. "Yes." The confession hung in the air. "Do you love her?" Michael asked. "Yes." "More than you value our friendship?" David didn't answer. That was answer enough. "Get out of my way," Michael said, standing up and heading for the door. "Where are you going?" "Where do you think? I'm going to confront Sarah. I'm going to demand a real DNA test, and then I'm going to figure out what the hell to do with my life." "Michael, wait. Sarah isn't in Boston." Michael turned around slowly. "What?" "She's at the Marriott downtown, room 847. I was supposed to meet her there tonight. That's why Jennifer's conveniently out with friends." "Are you kidding me right now? This story just keeps getting worse. Drop a comment, Team Michael, or do you think there's even more to this story? And please hit subscribe because part 3 is going to reveal what happened at that hotel room. You don't want to miss it." Michael drove to the Marriott in downtown Connecticut in a fog. His mind was simultaneously racing and completely blank. He couldn't process what he'd just learned. It was too much, too overwhelming. His best friend had been sleeping with his wife for over a year. His son might not be his son. His entire life was a lie. He parked in the hotel garage and sat in his car for 10 minutes, staring at nothing. What was he going to do? Burst into the room, scream at Sarah, demand answers? Or just walk away, file for divorce in the morning, take what was left of his dignity and disappear? But then he thought about Emma, about Jake, about the house on Maple Street that was supposed to represent everything he'd worked for. No, he wasn't going to walk away. He was going to get answers, and then he was going to decide what to do. Michael got out of the car and walked into the hotel. The lobby was quiet. A bored desk clerk barely looked up as he passed. He took the elevator to the 8th floor, found room 847, stood outside the door with his fist raised to knock. And that's when he heard it. Laughter, Sarah's laughter, that bright, musical sound that had made him fall in love with her 6 years ago. And then a man's voice, not David's voice. A different voice. Michael's blood turned to ice. He knocked hard. The laughter stopped immediately. "Room service," Michael called out, disguising his voice. Footsteps approached the door. The peephole darkened as someone looked through it. Then silence. "Sarah, I know you're in there," Michael said, his voice cold and steady. "Open the door now." More silence. "Sarah, I'm not leaving. I will call the front desk. I will make a scene. Open the door." Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he heard the lock click. The door opened a crack. Sarah stood there in a hotel robe, her hair messy, her makeup smudged. "Michael," she said, her voice shaking, "what are you doing here? Let me in. Now's not a good timia euros." Michael pushed the door open and walked in. And there, sitting on the bed in nothing but boxers, was someone Michael recognized immediately. But it wasn't David Chen. It was Marcus Webb, Michael's boss, the senior VP at his investment firm, the man who had promoted Michael, the man who had shaken his hand at Emma's baptism, the man who had given a toast at his wedding. "Marcus," Michael's voice cracked, "what the fuck?" Marcus stood up, reaching for his pants. "Michael, this isn't what it looks like euros." "Really? Because it looks like you're fucking my wife in a hotel room while I'm home with our kids." "Michael, calm down," Sarah said, stepping between them. "Let me explain euros." "Explain what? That you're not only cheating on me with David but with my boss too." Sarah's eyes widened. "You talked to David?" "Of course I talked to David. He just told me everything about the affair, about Jake, about euros." "Jake," Marcus interrupted. "What about Jake?" Michael looked at Marcus, then at Sarah. "You didn't tell him." Sarah's face went pale. "Tell me what?" Marcus demanded. "That Jake might be David's son," Michael shouted. Marcus took a step back, looking at Sarah with shock. "What?" Sarah started crying. "I was going to tell you euros." "Tell me," Marcus said. "Sarah, you told me I was the only one. You said you and Michael hadn't had sex in over a year. You said euros." "Wait," Michael interrupted, his mind racing. "How long have you two been?" Marcus looked at Sarah, then at Michael. He seemed to be doing calculations in his head. 2 years, Marcus said quietly. "We've been seeing each other for 2 years." Michael felt his knees buckle. He sat down hard on the room's desk chair. 2 years, David for 14 months, Marcus for 2 years. "How many?" Michael asked, his voice barely a whisper. "How many men, Sarah?" Sarah was sobbing now, mascara running down her face. "Michael, please euros." "How many?" "Just them, just David and Marcus, I swear." "Just them," Michael laughed, a sound completely devoid of humor. "Oh, well, that makes it so much better." Marcus was getting dressed now, his movements quick and panicked. "I need to leave, I can't be here." "You're not going anywhere," Michael said, standing up and blocking the door. "You're going to explain to me how this happened, both of you." "Michael, move," Marcus said, his voice taking on the authoritative tone he used in the office. "No. I'm your boss euros. I don't give a fuck if you're the president. You've been sleeping with my wife. You owe me an explanation." And so in that hotel room at the Marriott, with all 3 of them trapped together, the truth finally came out. Sarah had met Marcus first. 2 years ago at a company holiday party. They'd had too much to drink. One thing led to another. It was supposed to be a one-time mistake. But Marcus was powerful, wealthy. He could give Sarah things Michael couldn't: expensive dinners, luxury hotels, designer clothes. I was in love with the lifestyle, Sarah admitted, sitting on the bed with her face in her hands. Not with him, not really, but I liked how he made me feel. Important, valuable. And David? Michael asked, his voice hollow. David happened a year later. At Emma's birthday party, like he told you. We were drunk. It was stupid, but with David, it was different. I actually developed feelings for him. So you were in love with David, but using Marcus for money. Sarah nodded miserably. And me? Michael asked. What was I? The stable option, the father figure for your kids, the idiot husband who worked hard to give you a nice house while you fucked my best friend and my boss. You were safe, Sarah whispered. You were reliable. You loved me unconditionally. I knew I could always come home to you. The words cut deeper than any knife. Michael looked at Marcus, who was now fully dressed and hovering near the door. And you, what's your excuse? Marcus at least had the decency to look ashamed. I don't have one. It was wrong. I knew it was wrong, but Sarah is. She's magnetic, intoxicating. I couldn't stop myself. You're pathetic, Michael said, both of you. He turned to Sarah. I want a divorce. I want full custody of Emma, and I want a DNA test for Jake. Michael, please euros. I also want you out of my house. Tonight, pack your things and leave. Go stay with your sister. Go stay with one of your boyfriends, I don't care, but you're not coming home. You can't keep my children from me. Watch me. Michael pulled out his phone and started recording. Say it again. Tell me about the affairs, about David, about Marcus, about Jake. Say it all on camera. No, Sarah said, backing away. Say it or I'll make sure everyone knows. Your parents, your sister, your friends, every single person at my office. I'll ruin you, Sarah, just like you ruined me. And that's when Sarah's tears stopped. Her face changed. The sadness disappeared, replaced by something cold, calculating. You want to play it that way? She asked quietly. Fine, let's play. What? Did Sarah just threaten Michael? What could she possibly have on him? Comment below your theories. And make sure you're subscribed because part 3 is where this case takes a legal turn that shocked everyone. Sarah walked to her purse and pulled out her own phone. You think you're the only one with evidence? She asked. You think I didn't know this day might come? She pulled up something on her phone and turned it toward Michael. It was a video of Michael at his office, late at night, with his young assistant, Rebecca. Michael's stomach dropped. That was nothing, he said quickly. We were working late on the Henderson account, that's all. Really? Sarah asked, swiping to another video. This looks like just work to you. In the video, Rebecca was sitting on Michael's desk. He was standing close to her, too close. They were laughing, and then she leaned in and kissed him. That was one time, Michael said. One kiss. She initiated it. I pushed her away right after euros. Did you? Sarah swiped to another photo. This one showed Michael and Rebecca at a bar, her hand on his thigh. We went for drinks after closing the deal. As a team, other people were there at euros. Not in this photo, they weren't. Michael's mind raced. Yes, he'd been attracted to Rebecca. Yes, there had been some flirting. One drunken kiss that he immediately regretted. A few inappropriate moments he'd convinced himself meant nothing. But compared to what Sarah had done, it was nothing. You're comparing my one stupid kiss to your years of affairs with multiple men. I'm saying you're not innocent, Michael. And if you try to take my kids, if you try to destroy my reputation, I'll make sure everyone knows about you and Rebecca. I'll tell them you've been having an affair with a subordinate. I'll file sexual harassment charges through HR. I'll say you threatened her job if she didn't sleep with you. That's a lie. Is it? Or will people believe a young woman who says her married boss took advantage of her? Marcus, who had been silent during this exchange, spoke up. Sarah, don't do this. Stay out of this, Marcus. If you accuse Michael of sexual harassment, the investigation will uncover our affair too. I could lose my job, my marriage, everything. Sarah looked at Marcus with contempt. Then I guess we're all going down together. She turned back to Michael. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to go home, you're going to calm down, and tomorrow we're going to sit down like adults and figure out a reasonable divorce agreement. You'll get joint custody. I'll get the house. We'll split everything else 50-50. You get the house after what you did. After what we did, Sarah corrected. Don't forget you're not clean either. Michael looked at his wife. This woman he'd loved, trusted, built a life with, and didn't recognize her. Who are you? He asked. I'm someone who learned how to survive, Sarah said. Just like you did after your first divorce, you reinvented yourself, climbed the ladder, did what you had to do. Well, so did I. By destroying our family. Our family was destroyed the moment you stopped seeing me as a person and started seeing me as a trophy wife. I'm not going to apologize for taking control of my own happiness. Michael stood there, phone still in hand, recording everything. He had evidence, she had evidence, they were at a stalemate. I'm leaving, he finally said. But this isn't over, Sarah, not by a long shot. I know, she replied. I'll see you in court. Michael walked out of that hotel room with his entire world in pieces. But as he drove home, something changed inside him. The sadness turned to anger. The anger turned to determination. Sarah wanted a war, fine. He'd give her a war. What Michael didn't know was that his decision to fight back would lead to consequences none of them could have predicted. Consequences that would put him on trial for a crime that would shock everyone who knew him. Because 3 weeks later, someone would end up dead. Part 3. 3 weeks after that confrontation at the Marriott Hotel, Michael Harrison sat in a police interrogation room, his hands cuffed to a metal table. Across from him sat Detective Maria Rodriguez, a 20-year veteran of the Connecticut Police Department, and her partner, Detective James Walsh. Mr. Harrison, Detective Rodriguez said, placing a folder on the table. We need to talk about the night of September 7, 2019, the night David Chen died. Michael's lawyer, sitting beside him, put a hand on his arm. My client has already told you everything he knows. Has he? Detective Walsh leaned forward. Because the evidence we have tells a very different story. Before we get into what happened in that interrogation room, we need to go back. Back to the 3 weeks between the hotel confrontation and David's death, because that's where this case really begins. The morning after the hotel incident, Michael didn't go to work. He couldn't. Instead, he sat in his kitchen while Emma and Jake ate breakfast, oblivious to the fact that their family was falling apart. Daddy, why is Mommy still sleeping? Emma asked, her mouth full of cereal. Mommy's not here, sweetie, Michael said, his voice hollow. She had to go away for a little while. When is she coming back? I don't know. That simple question broke something in Michael. He excused himself, went to the bathroom, and cried for the first time since the night before. But crying wasn't going to fix this. He needed action. At 9 a.m., he called Robert Fitzgerald, the best divorce attorney in Connecticut. The same attorney his first wife had used against him years ago. Ironic, really. Mr. Fitzgerald, my name is Michael Harrison. I need your help. My wife has been having multiple affairs and I need to file for divorce immediately. And I need full custody of my children. Robert Fitzgerald had heard everything in his 30 years of practice. But even he was surprised by what Michael told him over the next hour. Let me get this straight, Fitzgerald said. Your wife had affairs with your best friend and your boss for years, and she has evidence that you kissed your assistant once. Yes. And one of your children might not be biologically yours. Yes. Mr. Harrison, I'm going to be honest with you. This is going to be messy, very messy, and expensive. I don't care about the money. I care about my kids. Even Jake, if the DNA test proves he's not yours? Michael paused. He'd been asking himself that same question all night. If Jake wasn't his biological son, could he still love him the same way? But then he remembered holding Jake in the hospital, teaching him to walk, reading him bedtime stories, wiping away his tears when he fell. Especially Jake, Michael said firmly. He's my son. Biology doesn't change that. Fitzgerald smiled. Good answer. Okay, here's what we're going to do. First, we file for divorce citing adultery. Second, we immediately request a paternity test through the court. Third, we hire a private investigator to document everything. A private investigator. Mr. Harrison, if your wife is going to play dirty with those photos of you and your assistant, we need ammunition. Real ammunition. We need to document her affairs with timestamps, locations, everything. We need to prove a pattern of behavior that makes her unfit for primary custody. She's not unfit, she's a good mother. Is she? A woman who carries on multiple affairs while her children sleep down the hall. A woman who lies to her husband for years. That's the narrative we're going to build. Michael hesitated. Part of him felt sick at the thought of destroying Sarah like this, but then he remembered her face in that hotel room, the coldness, the calculation. She declared war. He had to fight back. Do it, Michael said. Hire the investigator. This is where things get really interesting, folks. Drop a eth degrees in the comments if you think Michael is making the right move. And please subscribe. We're only at part 3 of 8 and this story gets so much darker. Fitzgerald hired a woman named Patricia Delgado, mid-40s, former FBI agent, now one of the most successful private investigators in the state. Michael met with her 2 days later at her office in downtown Hartford. Mr. Harrison, Patricia said, shaking his hand. I've reviewed your case. I'm going to be straight with you. This is going to hurt. What I find might not be what you want to hear. I need the truth, whatever it is. Okay, I'll need access to your shared financial records, phone records if you can get them, and I'll need to conduct surveillance on your wife and her associates. Over the next 2 weeks, Patricia worked like a machine. She discovered that Sarah had been using a credit card Michael didn't know about, one she'd opened in her maiden name, to pay for hotels, dinners, and gifts for both David and Marcus. She found text messages Sarah had deleted but that were still recoverable from cloud backups, messages that were explicit, detailed, sometimes involving plans to meet while Michael was at work or traveling. She documented 7 different occasions where Sarah met David at various hotels around Connecticut. She photographed Sarah and Marcus having lunch at an expensive restaurant in Manhattan, holding hands across the table. But the worst discovery came on August 30th, 2019. Patricia had been following Sarah to document her movements. That afternoon, Sarah drove to a medical clinic in New Haven. Patricia waited outside. When Sarah emerged 2 hours later, Patricia approached her under the guise of being a lost tourist asking for directions. In those few moments, she managed to snap several clear photos of Sarah's face. Later that night, Patricia hacked into the clinic's patient database. What she found made her immediately call Michael. Mr. Harrison, you need to sit down for this. What did you find? Your wife visited a women's health clinic today. She had an abortion. Michael felt like he'd been punched in the gut. What? According to the medical records, she was 8 weeks pregnant. She terminated the pregnancy this afternoon. Was it mine? The records don't indicate paternity, but based on the timeline and her patterns of behavior with David and Marcus, it could have been any of the 3 of you. Michael sat in his car in a grocery store parking lot, phone pressed to his ear, and tried to process this information. Sarah had been pregnant, with a child that might have been his, and she terminated it without telling him. Why would she do that? Michael asked, though he was really asking himself. My guess, Patricia said. She knew a pregnancy would complicate the divorce, force a paternity test, expose her affairs in court. This was easier. She killed our baby to cover up her affairs. I can't prove that's why she did it. But the timing is certainly suspicious. Michael thanked Patricia and hung up. Then he screamed. Just screamed at the top of his lungs in his car until his throat was raw and people in the parking lot were staring. This was the moment Michael Harrison stopped being sad and started being dangerous. Part 3 continued. The confrontation with David 2, 1130-2-2000. On September 3rd, 4 days before David's death, Michael showed up at David's office unannounced. David's secretary tried to stop him, but Michael pushed past her and burst into David's corner office. David looked up from his computer, his face going pale. "We need to talk," Michael said, closing the door. "Michael, this isn't a good Placia Euros. I don't give a fuck about what's appropriate. You want to talk about appropriate? Let's talk about you fucking my wife in the house I paid for." David stood up. "Lower your voice, people can hear a Euros." "Good, let them hear. Let everyone in this building know what kind of man you are." "Michael, please a Euros." "I know about the abortion," Michael said, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper. David's face went white. "What?" "Sarah was pregnant. She had an abortion 2 weeks ago. Did you know?" David sat down heavily in his chair. "No, I know." "Was it?" "I don't know." "You don't know? You've been having unprotected sex with my wife, and you don't know if you got her pregnant." "We use protection most of the Timia Euros." "Most of the time," Michael laughed bitterly. "That's just fantastic, David, real responsible." "Does Sarah know you know?" "Not yet, but she will. My lawyer is filing papers today. Full divorce, custody battle, and I'm making sure everyone knows what you did, your wife, your company, everyone." David stood up again, anger replacing fear. "You want to destroy me? Fine, but remember I can destroy you too. I know things about you, Michael, things you wouldn't want your lawyer to know." "Like what?" "Like the Henderson deal. The one that got you your big promotion. You want to tell everyone how you really closed that deal." Michael felt his blood run cold. The Henderson deal. The one massive account that had catapulted his career. David was there when it happened. David knew what Michael had done. "That was different," Michael said. "Was it? You falsified documents. You lied to the client about our fee structure. You pocketed a kickback under the table. That's fraud, Michael. That's illegal." "You were part of that too." "Was I? Where's your proof?" "Because I made sure there was no paper trail connecting me. But you got sloppy. You left evidence." They stared at each other across David's desk. Two former friends, now bitter enemies, each holding weapons that could destroy the other. "So what now?" Michael asked. "Mutually assured destruction. Now we both walk away and let the lawyers handle this like adults." "I can't do that, not after what you did." "Then we both go down," David said simply. "Your choice." Michael turned to leave, his hand on the doorknob. "Michael," David called out, "for what it's worth, I am sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen." Michael looked back at his former best friend. "You know what the worst part is? I actually believe you. You didn't mean for it to happen. It just did, because you're weak and selfish, and you couldn't keep your dick in your pants." "I loved her," David said quietly. "No, you didn't. If you loved her, you would have told me. You would have done the right thing. Instead, you lied to me every single day for over a year. You looked me in the eye, called me your brother, and fucked my wife behind my back." "What do you want me to say?" "I want you to say you'll testify, in court, under oath, about the affair, about Jake's paternity, about everything." David shook his head. "I can't do that. Jennifer will leave me. I'll lose everything." "You should lose everything. You deserve to lose everything." "So do you," David shouted back. You think you're innocent. You kissed Rebecca. You committed fraud. You're not some perfect victim here, Michael. I made mistakes, but I didn't betray my best friend. The words hung in the air. Get out of my office, David said finally, and don't come back. Michael left, but as he walked to his car, his hands were shaking with rage. That was the last conversation Michael and David would ever have. Call to action 2-2000-2-2015. Can you feel the tension building? Comment below, do you think Michael did something to David, or is there more to this story? Subscribe if you haven't already because Part 4 reveals what happened on September 7th. Part 3, the night of September 7 th 2015-2-2900. September 7th, 2019 started as a normal Saturday. Michael woke up at 7 a.m., made breakfast for Emma and Jake, and tried to maintain some sense of normalcy even though his life was falling apart. Sarah had moved out completely now, staying with her sister Jessica in Rhode Island. Michael had temporary custody pending the court hearing scheduled for October. At 2 p.m., Michael's lawyer called. Michael, we have a problem. David Chen has filed a motion to block the paternity test. He can do that. He's claiming it would violate his privacy rights. It's a long shot, but his lawyer is good. There's a chance the judge might delay the test for months. That's bullshit. I agree, but there's more. Marcus Webb has filed a harassment complaint against you with HR. He's claiming you've been threatening him. I haven't even talked to him since the hotel. I know, but he has a witness who says you sent him threatening emails. What emails? I never euros. Michael stopped. Wait, someone's setting me up. That's my thought too, but we need to figure out who and why. Michael spent the rest of the afternoon in a rage, packing his house, drinking whiskey, thinking about everything that had been taken from him. At 6 p.m. his phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Meet me at Riverside Park, 8 p.m. Come alone, we need to talk, D. David wanted to meet. Why? Michael's first instinct was to ignore it, but then he thought, maybe David had changed his mind. Maybe he was going to agree to testify. Maybe there was still a chance to salvage something from this nightmare. At 7:45 p.m., Michael left the kids with his neighbor Mrs. Peterson and drove to Riverside Park. The park was empty. It was getting dark. The streetlights cast long shadows across the walking path. Michael parked near the entrance and walked toward the river overlook where he and David used to play basketball back when they were still friends. That's when he saw the figure standing by the railing. But it wasn't David. It was Marcus Webb. Marcus, Michael called out, what are you doing here? Marcus turned around. His face was bruised. His shirt was torn. Michael, thank God, you need to leave now. What? Why? Where's David? It's a trap. Sarah and David set us up. Thea euros. That's when Michael heard the sirens. Police cars came screaming into the parking lot, lights flashing. What the fuck? Michael turned to run, but officers were already approaching from all sides. Michael Harrison, a voice called out over a megaphone, put your hands in the air. Michael raised his hands, his mind racing. What's going on? Get on the ground now. Michael dropped to his knees, completely confused. Officers surrounded him. Rough hands pushed him face down onto the pavement. Cuffs clicked around his wrists. Michael Harrison, you're under arrest for assault with intent to kill. What? I didn't assault anyone. We have a witness who says otherwise. They pulled Michael to his feet. That's when he saw Marcus being loaded into an ambulance, still conscious but clearly injured. Marcus, tell them I didn't do this. But Marcus wouldn't look at him. Detective Rodriguez approached. Mr. Harrison, Marcus Webb called 911 20 minutes ago, said you lured him here and attacked him, beat him with your fists and threatened to kill him. That's insane. He was already hurt when I got here. That's not what he says. And we have your text messages to him setting up this meeting. I never texted him. I got a text from David. Show me. Michael fumbled for his phone, but the officers had already confiscated it. This is a setup, Michael said desperately. Sarah and David planned this. They're framing me. That's a serious accusation, Mr. Harrison. Do you have any proof? Check my phone. The text is right there. Later at the police station, they did check his phone. The text from David was gone, deleted, like it had never existed. But there were text messages to Marcus, messages Michael never sent, messages threatening him, telling him to meet at the park, warning him to stay away from Sarah or else. I didn't send those, Michael insisted. Someone hacked my phone, planted those messages. Mr. Harrison, Detective Walsh said, we've seen this before. Jealous husbands who can't accept that their wives moved on. You found out about the affair. You snapped. You wanted revenge. No, this is all wrong. They kept him in a holding cell overnight. His lawyer showed up the next morning. Michael, this is bad, really bad. Marcus is pressing charges. If he'd been more seriously injured, you'd be looking at attempted murder. Robert, I swear to God I didn't do it. I was set up. I believe you, but we need to prove it. And right now, all the evidence points to you. They released Michael on $50,000 bail Monday morning. He went home to find Emma and Jake confused and scared. Daddy, where were you? Emma asked. I had some things to take care of, sweetie. That afternoon, Michael got another call from his lawyer. Michael, sit down. I have some news. What now? David Chen is dead. David Chen's body was found Sunday morning, September 8th, in his home office. According to the preliminary medical examiner's report, he died sometime Saturday night between 8 p.m. and midnight. Cause of death, blunt force trauma to the head. He'd been beaten, severely, with what appeared to be a baseball bat. The bat was found at the scene, wiped clean of prints but with traces of blood that matched David's DNA. And here's where it gets worse for Michael. The bat belonged to him. It was the same Louisville slugger Michael used to play softball with David every Sunday. The bat had been in Michael's garage. His fingerprints were all over it because, well, it was his bat. How did the bat get from my garage to David's house? Michael asked Detective Rodriguez when she showed up to question him. That's what we'd like to know, Mr. Harrison. I didn't kill David. I was at the park. You arrested me at the park. You were arrested at 8:17 p.m., Rodriguez said. David's time of death is estimated between 8 p.m. and midnight. You were released on bail at 9 p.m. that same night. Michael's blood ran cold. You think I killed him after you released me? Did you? No, I went straight home. I picked up my kids from Mrs. Peterson and I stayed home all night. Can anyone verify that? My kids, they were with me. Your kids are 4 and 2 years old, Mr. Harrison. That's not exactly a reliable alibi. What about Mrs. Peterson? She saw me pick them up. We spoke to Mrs. Peterson. She confirms you picked up your children at 9:23 p.m., but that doesn't account for your whereabouts after 10 p.m. David's house is only 15 minutes from yours. Michael felt the walls closing in. Check my phone records, check traffic cameras, check anything. I was home. We are checking everything, Mr. Harrison, but right now, all the evidence points to you. What evidence? Detective Walsh pulled out a folder. We found hair fibers in David's office. They match your DNA. We found skin cells under David's fingernails, also yours, suggesting he fought his attacker and scratched you. Let me see your arms, Mr. Harrison, Rodriguez said. Michael rolled up his sleeves. There were scratches there, 3 long scratches on his right forearm. But Michael knew exactly where those scratches came from. Emma's cat, Mr. Whiskers, had scratched him 2 days ago when he tried to give it a bath. "Those are from a cat," Michael said desperately. "My daughter's cat scratched me on Friday." "Very convenient," Walsh said.